are back. All right, so with NASA under presidential orders to land humans on Mars by 2033, a new documentary called The Longest Goodbye tackles one of the greatest challenges facing long mission astronauts, the mental health of those living in extreme isolation. Take a look.
It was a really cold morning. I remember they're counting down. And then as soon as it lifts off, you feel it in your chest. My mom is not on the planet. She's really gone.
We all start wondering if we're doing the right thing. Should I have been on this mission? Should I have left my family back there? And that can lead to devastating psychological effects.
Wow. We are thrilled to have the director in studio today. Please welcome Ido Mizrahi. Welcome to the studio. So you set up originally to make a movie about the mission to Mars, but while filming it, the story began to change. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, we cast a pretty wide net. We thought the mission to Mars is amazing. We have to figure out how to kind of find our story. And we were introduced to a lot of interesting people until we got to Johnson Space Center. And after meeting astronauts and flight directors, we met this person who was part of a unit that is supposed to keep astronauts mentally stable in space. And they quietly kind of turned Johnson Space Center into kind of a loneliness laboratory where they try to figure out how to mitigate the effects of isolation. And we thought, okay, this is a good way to tell the story that's kind of a space story, but really isn't. It's sort of about all of us.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that so many of the astronauts admit to actually maybe not being entirely honest with the doctors because they don't want to jeopardize their mission. How did you get them to open up?
Yeah, it's really tricky. I mean, they have obviously a lot to protect, and they have a lot of people around them who protect them for a very good reason. So it was very complicated, and we had to jump through a lot of hoops to get to the astronauts.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that once I was in front of them, you know, the three subjects who are in the documentary, they really opened. It was quite easy. It's like they couldn't wait to talk about some of these things because they're rarely asked those things. And so I couldn't even get to like my next difficult question. They kept pushing me to get more personal.
Oh my gosh.
Which is not, I expected to find people who are much more sort of protective, right?
Yeah.
It was really surprising.
I want to go back to the clip that we just saw there at the top because we know that parenting is hard on Earth, I guess. But also when you delve into this, you discuss with former astronaut Katie Coleman what it was like parenting her son, Jamie. He was only 9 when she went to space for 6 months. So we often don't think about also the toll that this is taking on the families of the astronauts. So talk to us a little bit about what you discovered.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joint mission, right? Everybody has to sort of buy in, but a 9-year-old is a 9-year-old. I mean, how can you really buy into it? And he'll have his feelings about it. He's going to be really angry. He might not want to talk to mom. And then mom is sitting on top of like a gazillion-dollar experiment right now that everybody's counting on. She has to perform really well and also want to be in his life. There's a moment in the film where he gets really upset and he's really rude at his grandma.
Yeah.
And she manages to sort of, we're looking at it, this video conference that they're having. She's kind of scolding him because she has to. And she manages to still perform at this level and also parent this child at the same time. It's kind of beautiful. It's pretty amazing.
It was also very emotional. I got
Yeah.
quite teared up watching that scene. Another astronaut featured in the film is Kayla Barron, who has been tapped to go to the moon and then potentially to Mars. So did Kayla share any reservations with you about being away for so long and, maybe wanting to start a family?
It's so tricky. Kayla and many of her colleagues, they come into NASA at the peak of their careers. They're in their mid-30s, many of them. They have this already rich career in the military or in the Navy, and they have all this, academic achievements. And now they're ready to be astronauts, but it's also exactly when they might want to have a family. And it's, with the space station, which was kind of beta testing going to Mars, right? It's a little bit shorter. What do you do when you have to go away for 3 years with no real-time communications and start a family at the same time?
Yeah.
I think Kayla is somebody who could do it, by the way, and she sort of discovered that about herself while being on the space station.
Well, you got to speak with her.
I did.
On the space station. What's it like to call space?
It's really cool. It's like the coolest thing I've ever done.
No.
Yeah,
Tell me
because
everything.
it's like this thing where it's very traditional, mission control, and suddenly it's like my big face on the screen, and then Kayla on the other screen, and they're like, okay, are you ready for the event? And then Does that mean?
Yeah.
That's me sitting in my studio, just being like, jumping out of my skin. Wow. And then, but once that's out of the way, we had about 25 minutes to talk. And what was amazing is, other than just hearing my voice boom through the space station, which is like the closest I'll ever get to space, is that, a lot of the stuff Kayla and I talked about before, about family, about what it means to kind of balance those two desires, she thought about while she was on the space station. And she had a lot of thoughts about whether she'll be able to do it when she goes to Mars. And she feels like she does. And so it was a pretty moving conversation.
Wow. There may have been a time like pre-2020, let's say, where it would have been not easy to relate to what it's like to be in space and so far away and alone. But then, of course, the pandemic. And so many people were by themselves for so long. Can you talk about those parallels now?
Sure. I mean, I think it's really hard, who really wants to keep talking about how terribly we felt during those years, right? I mean, we all felt these things that we do need to unpack somehow, but I think it's really hard to talk about head on. I think the fact that and this just kind of happened by coincidence, the fact that we have a space story where we can kind of project all those feelings onto something so big on this kind of big stage, almost like an opera version of our lives, helps maybe allowing some of our demons and what we felt kind of play out in a way that's a little bit easier. So I think that in that sense, it just sort of kind of moved into the zeitgeist in an interesting way that we didn't really expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, what a fascinating film. Thank you so much to you and your team for making it. So
Thanks for
fascinating.
having me. Thank you. Thank you.
Again, it is called The Longest Goodbye. It is another must-see. Visit hotdocs.ca for more ticket information. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back right after this.
Thanks for watching. We've got lots more discussion and debates on everything from food and fashion to pop culture and current events. Don't forget to click like and subscribe.